Getting rich and staying rich, they're two completely different things. And what's wild is that the skill that gets you the first one can actually destroy the second. It's not about making these genius investing moves. Nope, it's about something way simpler, your behavior. And if you can really grasp this one idea, it could be the difference between a temporary windfall and a lifetime of real wealth. So let's dive in.
Think about it for a second. We hear these stories constantly, right? The lottery winner, the superstar athlete, the brilliant trader, who, a few years later, ends up with absolutely nothing. How in the world does that happen? It's a puzzle that really gets to the heart of how we think about money, and today we're going to put those pieces together.
All right, to really get a handle on this, we've got to look at one of the greatest stock market traders who ever lived, a guy named Jesse Livermore. Back in the early 20th century, this man was an absolute legend. But his story, it's the perfect, and honestly tragic, example of this exact problem.
So Livermore's entire career was just this insane cycle of boom and bust. He would make these colossal fortunes, I'm talking more than most of us could even dream of, by correctly predicting huge market crashes. He was a flat-out genius at getting wealthy. But then, poof, he'd lose it all. And not just once, but multiple times. He was a master of the boom, but he was also a victim of his own success.
And this right here is the painful, crucial point of his story. Being brilliant isn't enough. You can make one great call after another, but it means absolutely nothing if you make one single mistake that wipes you completely off the board. Game over.
So what went so wrong for Livermore? And really, what goes wrong for so many other people? Well, it all comes down to this fundamental misunderstanding that brings us to our next point. We just assume that the skills that make you rich are the exact same ones that keep you rich. But they're not. In fact, a lot of the time, they're polar opposites.
Okay, so think about it like this. Getting wealthy usually requires a ton of optimism, right? Taking big risks, putting yourself out there, seizing opportunities. But staying wealthy? Oh, that is a totally different ballgame. It's about having a healthy dose of paranoia. It's about humility. It's about being a little bit scared that what you've gained can be taken away just as quickly. It's all about playing defense, not just offense.
And this brings us to what might be the single most important word in all of personal finance: survival. Why? Well, because that magic of compounding, your money making more money for you, it only works if you give it time, a lot of time. See, if you get knocked out of the game, even for a little while, you interrupt that incredible process and you lose its biggest, most powerful benefit. You have to survive the downturns if you want to be around to enjoy the upturns.
So, the big question is, how do we get knocked out of the game in the first place? Let's talk about the psychology of ruin, because it's rarely some single big external event that does it. More often than not, it's our own psychology turning against us, especially right after a big win. And listen, this isn't just a problem for billionaires. It's a human problem. It affects all of us.
This is the classic overconfidence trap. We get a win, and suddenly we start to think we're invincible. We confuse a lucky break with our own genius. And what does that lead to? Taking even bigger risks, maybe using leverage, and just assuming that the good times are the new normal. It's a totally deadly cocktail that almost always ends in ruin.
Okay, so we know the problem. We see the trap. The good news is there's a survival framework. And honestly, it's not complicated at all. We just need to shift our mindset from how do I get the absolute biggest gains to how do I make sure I get to keep playing tomorrow?
So here's the framework. It's pretty simple. First, avoid catastrophic failure at all costs. A single 50% loss requires a 100% gain just to get back to even. Think about that. Second, always build in a room for error. The future is completely unpredictable, so you have to plan for things to go wrong. And third, and this is a tough one for the ego, you have to accept that you're going to miss out on some things. Missing a big gain is disappointing for sure, but blowing up your entire portfolio, that's permanent.
Let's just pause on this for a second, because this quote is the core of everything we're talking about. The first rule of compounding is to never interrupt it unnecessarily. See, the goal isn't to be flashy. The goal is to be unbreakable, to simply let time and compounding do their incredible magic without you getting in your own way. So what does this survival thing look like in the real world? Honestly, it's not very exciting. It doesn't make for great TV or splashy headlines. It's having cash on the side just in case. It's investing in solid, maybe even kind of boring assets. And it's not leveraging your lifestyle to the absolute max, living on the financial edge.
And that right there is the big secret.
The flashy strategies, they burn out. The most aggressive players, they eventually get wiped out. But the tortoise, that boring, consistent, and durable approach, that's the one that lasts long enough to become truly, lastingly wealthy.
And you don't need to be some Wall Street trader for any of this to apply. For most of us, survival just means staying away from high-interest credit card debt. It means not gambling your emergency savings on the latest crypto craze. See, it's not about being fearless. It's about being financially unbreakable so you can withstand whatever life decides to throw at you.
So, the most crucial point to take away from all of this is simple. When you're thinking about your finances, don't just focus on growth. Focus on endurance. Because in the long run, the person who simply sticks around, that's the one who really wins. In the next chapter, we'll talk about why only a few moments create most investment success and why being wrong most of the time is completely normal. If this explainer helped you think differently about money, hit like. Subscribe if you want to build wealth that actually lasts.